When we come back from break, we are going to be talking about saving your marriage with the author of this book.
Exactly. And one of the quotes from the book, successful marriages are not only made in heaven, they are also well managed. We'll be finding out more about that related to that quote when we come back.
Wow, we're going to go for a short break. When we come back, it's about saving your marriage. Now, if you're struggling in your relationship or if you intend to go into a new relationship, all that and more coming up after the break. Welcome back to The Breakfast Show, the show worth waking up for. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, one that affects a lot of us who are married, also who are in a relationship. Now, this next guest of ours has spent at least 16 years counseling married couples, dealing with divorce cases, and that have led him to write a book about his experiences. So, there you go. We have him in the house.
Exactly. We have Dr. Arunan Selvaraj. I didn't have enough coffee this morning.
Good morning, Dato. So, should we address you as Dato Doctor or Doctor?
Just Dato Arunan.
Dato Arunan. Okay, so Dato, now you have spent like 16 years counseling, a lot of divorce cases, as well as you even said that, some of these cases were so harrowing that you felt like you were emotionally involved and you have to kind of detach away. So, what have you kind of seen in a lot of these very painful events?
See, the saddest thing is to see grown men cry. You see people, when you sit down, you spend time talking to them, and a lot of things they can't really, when they go to court, they can't express this to the judge. So, and sometimes lawyers don't have time, they just want to go through the documents with you. So sometimes you really need to spend time listening to them. And then they feel appreciated. At the same time, you will know the whole picture. Sometimes you only listen to one side of the story. So you listen to both sides, then you know exactly the whole picture. And then when I see these people, I can relate to what they're going through. Initially, it was difficult for me because, they call you at night and, different times and all that. But as time went by, I told myself, to emotionally detach myself from this situation and help them.
However, from reading your book, what I found most interesting is that it's not like the other usual marriage counseling books where it feels very regimented and the advice is very theoretical. For example, if you do this, you will get this, or if you don't do this, this will happen. But I think we all know, for any duration of being in a marriage or a relationship, that's not always the case. So a lot of what you have written is based on experience. What do you think are some of the main reasons for a marriage breakdown from what you have seen so far?
Basically, I think lots of it has to do with communication. Sometimes basic communication. People don't communicate nowadays very well. There's, with digital technology nowadays, people communicate in a different way.
Right.
I remember asking...
SMS to husband and wife.
Exactly. And when I remember asking a friend of mine, he said he's always in touch with his wife. And then I asked him, how often? He said, no, it's through WhatsApp or SMSs, So it's that. So the intimacy is gone. The personal touch is gone. You see, there are pros and cons to, this kind of technology, but personal touch is not there. That's a sad part.
Right. So now your book addresses a lot of issues, and you even dedicated one particular chapter to nagging. and you said that it's one of the most common problems that lead to a marriage breakdown.
And there's different kinds of nagging. There's silent nagging.
Yes.
There's the nitty-gritty, and it's all listed here.
Yes.
Why one whole chapter just to nagging?
Because lately I found lots of people, when especially I meet the husband separately or the wife separately, they tell me their problems, and I know that's the issue. And, when you tell the other party about it, they are in denial. They just don't want to accept it. They say, me, no way, that kind of thing. So I think it's a very important topic. A lot of people might not accept it, but they have to do some soul searching, and maybe, hopefully, they will eventually realize that, and they must probably change the attitude.
And a big thing about you that you wrote about as well is taking responsibility for your part of the marriage, because it is two people involved. Also, the first chapter, you go into the various reasons people go into a marriage, whether it's for financial stability, the want for children, but there's also love. A lot of us have this idealistic vision of going into a love marriage. How important is love in a marriage?
Yeah, love is very important. I feel like, love is, it really helps in the relationship. It keeps the marriage together. And when there is love, you also not only do you see the goodness in a person, but also you get to see his shortcomings or her shortcomings. And, you can practice forgiveness, and you'll be more patient with that person. So, love actually, if you ask me, my definition is, love is not about accepting someone's ways and all that. It's basically trying to look for the person you really love. That's very important.
Now, also, Doctor, now you mentioned there were several cases like FAQ, frequently asked questions, right? And one of them is, when a spouse has an affair, and despite communicating that affair and moving on, the other spouse feels like, he or she has not been able to forgive. And hence, it kind of destructs the marriage, and the children are involved. So some stay because of the children. So what's your professional advice on this?
See, children, the saddest part is children, they always, inevitably, they come in the picture, and people use them as an excuse. They say, I'm going to stay in this marriage because of the children. Sometimes they don't realize that children want out of that kind of situation. They don't want to be in a situation, this kind of turbulence or, turbulent or conflicting environment. They want to be out of it. And so it's wrong for parents to actually say, I want to stay in the marriage because of the children. So the children should, they should look at the what's good for the children, and maybe they should separate, and the children don't have to be in that kind of environment. So you should actually look at the marriage itself in the children's eyes, see how they look at it.
Would communicating with the children help?
Yes, it will help, but a lot of people, what they do is they take advantage of, or they use the children as instruments, and sometimes they want to be very matured, and they want to get children involved in the conversation, and things they do is like they confide in the children, and they start telling horror stories or bad things about the spouse. Now, when that happens, that's the sad part, because when that happens, the child has a different impression on either the father or the mother. So I think you shouldn't really get the children involved in your fights. You should keep them separate from everything. Communication is good, but make them feel wanted and make them feel loved.
There is one part of the book where you're talking about children where you met up with the client and you gave the daughter a piece of paper and to draw something on, and what she drew shocked you because what she drew was a picture of her holding hands with both her mother and father. And I think there was also a quote in the book, what God is to people, parents are to the children.
Exactly.
So they continue to look up to the parents. So how do you handle a situation like that?
See, the thing is, first of all, I was really shocked because that itself shows how much what the child actually wants. The child actually wants love, wants attention, and people forget that. Sometimes when they have the argument, they start telling the children things like this, and I realized that the children, because they want attention, they start lying. Okay, they tell the father, a story about the mother because that's what the father wants to hear.
Right.
Like, she's with the other guy. I saw it. Actually, it's not true. So the father is like more interested in this kind of issues. So they start lying, and they'll tell the mother, father didn't give us food last night when we went and stayed with him. They do this kind of things because they want attention. So I think the attention is very important for the child, especially if they're going through this divorce.
Ultimately, I think the child also experienced a lot of pain.
Exactly.
Now, there's also another chapter where you discussed about, habits and behaviors of a spouse. So if a spouse says, and they want to change, right, because they feel, okay, it's a very troubled marriage, but my husband or wife, has a lot of bad habits and is not committed to change, how do I change that person? How do I go on?
Okay. See, the thing about change is everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change themselves, right? That's always
interesting, yeah.
See, even when you point a finger at someone, you have 3 more fingers pointing back at you. But people find it difficult to accept about themselves. There's a chapter I wrote about where this guy goes on and on and on about his wife. But actually, I found there's no issues. The wife is a nice person, and all the issues are with him. And she's accepted all that. So change is not easy. Nobody says it's easy. But what you must do is time, make the person understand. Different people understand different things in a different way. So how are you going to relate that to the person? Some people you need to spend more time, you have to be more patient with that person. Some people you have to actually be a bit aggressive and tell him, look, I can't take this anymore. You see, so it really depends on circumstances and the person you're married to.
And understanding the personality.
Exactly.
Now we're going to open up to callers to call in if you'd like to ask Dato any questions. Now, if someone comes to you and says, I want a divorce now, what would your first question be? Are you sure? Or what's going on? How do you handle situations like that?
See, it's not as simple as that. We really need to know the history. So that's why, you know, I have a lot of people calling me over the phone and they want to go through a divorce. And I never advise them over the phone. I always ask them to come to the office, even for free advice. And I listen to the whole story, the whole history, and then I advise them what to do. And I normally give them some time and tell them to actually, if possible, to think about it, come back after a couple of months, and if you still want to go through it, then we'll go through it. So normally I advise and tell them what to do. And once I know what the problem is, I'll tell them, try to address these issues and these problems, and if they can solve it, then well and good. If not, they come back to me.
Has it happened though, like, you know, someone has come to see and say, I want to get divorced, I'm sure, what, and then you've talked through things, and then 6 months later they've gone, you know what, everything's fine now?
Yes. One chapter in my book, I've mentioned that, and that person, he came to the office, you know, he was really upset. And his wife was actually expecting their first child.
Oh.
So, you know, so I told him to just be patient, come back after 3 months. And he was a bit upset. But eventually, when the child was born, he came and saw me. He named the son after me.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and he told me, you know, what I said was true. So she needed that time to herself, and, you know, hormonal changes and things like that.
So we do grow up. I mean, we are
Yes.
constantly growing up, even in a marriage, Doctor.
Yes,
Would you say that?
exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, when it comes to managing finances, and I know finances can be an issue that lead to splits in marriages, would you suggest that, you know, couples have a joint account, separate account? Because I know sometimes the independence can split a couple.
That really depends on a lot of things, you know, how you want to manage your funds, and what are the things you're going to do together. You know, sometimes it's better to have separate accounts, sometimes it's better to have joint account, or you can have both, you know, a joint account for family things, or, you know, for savings, and separate accounts to manage your own finance. What you need to do is actually sit down and talk. Then again, comes back to communication, not WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Proper communication.
Face to face, not
Exactly.
WhatsApp.
Yes.
Now, we do have a caller on the line from Penang. I think it's Siana. What would you like to ask Dato?
Yeah, Dato.
Yes. Good morning.
Hello, Dato. Good morning, Dato.
Yes, morning.
I just want to ask you, I've been married for 25 years, and I know my husband is having an affair. I always try to save my marriage, just saying that it's because of the children I can't go out from this marriage, you know. What should I do right now?
Okay. All right.
What do you think? Yeah. I always try to get excuse, you know, just to stay in marriage, yeah.
Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for sharing. I know this must be very difficult
painful.
for you to come forward like this, so thank you for sharing.
Yes. Now, that's another difficult and painful situation, Dato. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a paralyzing question.
Yes.
Okay, the thing is, the key question you should ask yourself is, how will you be, are you better off after the divorce? Put yourself in a position where you can see yourself after the divorce, and you think, are you going to move forward? Is it better? Are you going to be better off going to the divorce, or you think you can't manage? If you think you're going to suffer, you know, you can't let go of the past, and then you probably have to stay in the marriage. But if you ask me personally, you really analyze and you think you're really suffering, then I think it's time to move forward. You know, accept it. See, a lot of people, they when they go through a divorce, they find it difficult to accept what has happened. They are in denial. They can't accept what has happened in the past. They want a better tomorrow, but they can't forget yesterday. So I think that's very important to actually ask yourself that question. And if you think you don't have a choice, then, you know, you could go for a divorce. But one more issue on the affair part is, please be very sure. You know, a lot of people go on speculation. They see the husband having lunch with someone, they straight away assume it's divorce. It's an affair. So you have to also be 100% sure. And maybe, I don't know whether you've confronted him. I think you should probably do that. And if he apologizes and he is serious about it, Then moving forward, it's up to you whether you want to, accept and move forward and forgive him or not.
No. Sorry, we'll go ahead.
I was just going to ask Dato, now when is divorce the final chapter? When is that last decision is divorce?
I think you should try to exhaust everything,
Counseling,
everything,
talking.
the whole works. See, the thing is, people don't want to go for counseling. A
Why
lot of people
is that? Is
Because
that a
of the
social
stigma?
stigma or
Exactly. Various reasons. One of it, social stigma. Sometimes it's to do with ego. People feel
I'm
like,
not the problem.
Yes,
You're the problem.
Yes. When the one party tells the other person, let's go for counseling, they say, why I don't need counseling, you need counseling. They feel it's like seeing a psychiatrist or something like that. They don't need a third party coming and telling you what to do. So counseling helps. Sometimes if you don't, you feel afraid to go for a professional counselor, you can always talk to someone you really love, someone who you really care. And then don't take whatever they say at face value. Listen to what they say, analyze it, and then decide for yourself. See, nobody can actually, when it comes to marriage and divorce, nobody will know better than only you.
Yes,
you will know
because
for
you're
yourself.
in it and you
Exactly.
live with them.
And sometimes when you go and ask a third party, you tell them a story about your husband or about your wife. They will look at it from their perspective or their angle. So only you know. So when people tell you something, listen to what they got to say. Okay, then you analyze it for yourself.
Right. Now, what do you think makes marriages last? Because realistically and unfortunately, divorce rates are on the rise.
Yes,
compared to our parents' generation, compared to our generation, like Lisa and my age, why do you think there has been such a change in divorce rates over the last 20, 30 years?
Well, things are moving so fast these days. Those days, social stigma, people are worried that, people talk about it and, when you go for functions and all, they look at you differently. But these days, people don't care about that anymore. And these days, even children, the way they're brought up and all that, the parents are always very supportive. So if something goes wrong, they always go back to their parents' place, you see. So those days, when you go back to your mom's house, they kick you out and say, no, go
Sort it out.
Sort it out yourself.
Yes.
So a lot of other factors and the way things are moving nowadays, money, financial issues, communication, things are moving very fast compared to those days. And so now people are also financially better off. So, financial independence as well. So you don't need to depend on the person anymore. So if you're financially okay, you can just move on.
Now, also, Dato, now when it comes to marriage as an institution, it binds two people. And when you go through life together, there's a lot of, ups and downs. You have children after children, flying the nest and then going all together. So what are the pillars that you find that bind people strongly in a marriage?
Sometimes it's your belief, your religion, upbringing. Upbringing is very important because sometimes you find two people, they're both nice, really nice people, but their upbringing, it's different, totally different. So they just can't blend. They can't get along very well because one person looks at things differently, the other person looks at things differently. So it's difficult in that sense. So I think you have to keep the fire going. And you must realize that also in a marriage, both parties, everybody makes mistakes, they're human. But one person sometimes takes the superior seat and feels that, you shouldn't have done this, keeps giving instruction, you shouldn't have done that. So I think it's a bit of both. It's basically giving and taking.
Yeah, and constant communication as well. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Most informative, and I definitely recommend anybody who is in a relationship or wants to go into a marriage or already in a marriage. Problem, no problem, it's fine. It's a good read anyway.
Yes.
Where can people purchase this book?
You can buy it in all the bookshops.
All the bookstores.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dato Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Now, we are going to be taking a break, and when we return, we will have a lot more happening in the show. Plus, we will announce who are the winners for our Disney Hong Kong challenge. Don't go anywhere.